5G. Why is it called 5G? What do you think of when you hear the word 5G? Does it scare you? Does it excite you? In 2018, there was a lot of excitement in the air when several telecommunication companies came forward with their plans to adopt 5G. But there was also a lot of backlash and concern. This concern was raised because allegedly 5G was known to cause tumors in hearts and brains of lab rats that they were being tested upon. Why is 5G generating so much friction when it is not even operational yet? First, let us explore what is 5G in theory. 5G can offer 10 to 100 times the speed of 4G. This is because 5G uses higher frequency waves than 4G or 3G, which are less crowded with other devices. As 5G technology begins to get implemented all around the world, there's a lot of confusion and concern over what it is, how it works, and if it's even safe. So today we are going to go over all the aspects of 5G. We are going to be explaining why people are so excited about this technology. And then we are going to talk about the science angle about how it actually works, what it does to your body, and most importantly, what science says on whether or not it is safe. So 5G technology, or the fifth generation of these data networks, has been getting a lot of hype, and it has been talked about a lot, and it's been slowly rolled out over the past year or two and getting insane speeds in some phones. So the wavelength used for 5G technology can be split into three different sections. There is a low band 5G whose frequency is below about 1 GHz. Then there is what we call the mid-band 5G, which is slightly above that, which is faster but travels a shorter distance. Then there's a millimeter wave, which is talked about the most, which can give you the fastest speeds and uses the highest frequencies but travels the shortest distance. So with 5G, now we're talking about download speeds of anywhere from 50 megabytes per second all the way up to those crazy millimeter wave speeds you might have seen of like 2 gigabytes per second, which is insane. I mean, that's like we're talking about a whole TV show season downloads in seconds. So download speeds are nice, but this 5G tech will be useful for far more than just your phone. Now comes the question we have been waiting for all along. Is 5G safe for humans and our environment? The issues with 5G arise as a result of its extremely high frequency, which lies between 30 GHz to 300 GHz. Due to the higher frequency, the waves do not travel vast distances. Hence, antennas must be erected closer to each other to provide clearer 5G reception. We are not talking about a few more, but we are talking about an exponential growth in antennas. Will these antennas pose health and environmental risks? Wireless companies and even government agencies such as Centers of Disease Control and Prevention in the United States Environmental Protection Agency believe that the radio waves produced by 5G are safe, and they could be right. 5G networks used microwaves, millimeter wavelength radiations, which are considered non-ionizing and don't produce the kind of energy that directly damages cells. It is the ionizing radiation that is harmful, and this ionizing radiation can pull apart atoms and as such is known to damage cells and cause cancer. However, more than 215 scientists from over 40 countries have appealed to the United Nations for urgent action to reduce the electromagnetic field exposure emitted from wireless sources. Even if they are non-ionizing, these scientists also submitted a letter to the Federal Communications Commission (FCC) asking the body to consider health risks and environmental issues before rapid deploying of the fifth generation wireless infrastructure. And they are not alone to bargain with the government, and they've also halted 5G tests in Brussels over concerns about radiation from the base stations. Members of Parliament and the Netherlands are calling on the government to further examine 5G, while Switzerland is monitoring 5G's impact on people. The radiation from these devices could damage cells via oxidative stresses in cells. This biological mechanism leads to inflammation and has been found to cause cancer, diabetes, and other diseases. For the time being, 5G seems safe, but there is simply not enough data to know for sure. If you are concerned, you can sign a petition to halt the development of 5G wireless networks under a proper framework and guidelines considering the health hazards and environmental effects are prepared. Before we make our homes, business, and cities smart, it is important to make smart decisions while adopting new technology. How do 5G waves affect us? We know that 5G frequencies are not ionizing radiation, but should we be worried about them impacting our body in other ways? After decades of research on health effects, the ICN-IRP found that the only substantiated effect of radio waves exposure is the heating of exposed tissue. These wavelengths can cause vibration of charged or polar molecules inside us, which creates friction and thus heat. But the higher the frequency, the lower the penetrative depth in the body, which might seem a little unnerving, and I think it's fair to have a concern because technically there is a thermal threshold that if we pass can cause adverse effects of health on us. But that's why all these regulating bodies are there to make sure that our exposure never goes over that threshold. Research has even been done on these headaches, sleep quality, cognitive function, etc. and has shown no issues. On the other hand, there was found that a small effect on the brain activity when measured by the EEGs, but the biological implication of what that means is pretty small, and they haven't actually seen any negative effects associated to this brain activity. So why do some people say that 5G can cause cancer? There are a few studies that often get quoted. And one, lab rats and mice were exposed to radio frequency energies used in cell phones for 9 hours a day starting before birth and for 2 years after, and found an increased risk of some type of tumors in male rats. But the male rats exposed to the radio frequency radiation actually ended up living longer than other rats, and the female rats and mice of the other experiment didn't have an increase of tumors at all. Some of the epidemiological studies have found a small increase in some brain tumors in some people who are heavy users of cell phones, and they were reporting biases and weakness in these studies. Also, it's important to remember that these studies are on cell phone use, so they're actually talking about 3G, 4G and 5G frequencies. The consensus among scientists is that 5G technology will not cause cancer, but it is a very confusing figure. The consensus among scientists is that 5G technology will not cause cancer, but it is very confusing to figure out this information while you're looking online. For example, even the article Scientific American would make you worried that cell phones and 5G could cause cancer, even though the studies are not corroborated and some of its claims are just the opposite of what the study says. This happens a lot with scientific information that gets cherry-picked to mislead people. Read Scientific American a week later and most of the prior articles' information are debunked. Both of these articles are seen from seemingly different scientifically accurate sources. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is scientists looking at large trials with large sample sizes and controlling variables. One very large 13 countrywide study found that there is no causal relationship between brain tumors and cell phone use. And another really great Danish study, huge and large study found that there was no link. Okay, so let's talk about conspiracies. First, we'll address the elephant in the room, the new online theory that 5G causes coronavirus. So this one is relatively easy to debunk. 5G technology cannot break chemical bonds, which is a common claim that the conspiracy theorists use. On top of the fact that viruses are visible and we can literally see that they physically exist, we can study them, we can look at their literal DNA. So ultimately we know that 5G does not cause coronavirus. Is 5G bad for birds? This study is quoted often to explain how electromagnetic noise of 5G can disrupt the migration of birds. But these researchers actually found that it's longer waves, more similar to AM radio type wavelengths, that were actually affecting migrating birds. And they have actually come out and tried to speak openly, trying to explain that their research is getting cherry-picked, and they try to say something about 5G that they've never heard. There's the new British 20-pound note show coronavirus in 5G. These conspiracy theories have been popping up stating that the 20-pound note has a 5G tower giving off radiation and the coronavirus is above. This is actually an image of the migrating lighthouse, and behind it is the new Turner Contemporary Art Gallery. The purple foil patch is placed on the staircase at Tate Modern. Now with the scientific territory though, so let's get back on track. So to recap, 5G technology uses wavelength with super high and extra frequency spectrum. These fall into the category of non-ionizing radiation, meaning that they cannot damage DNA or destroy cells. 5G does have the capacity to heat exposed tissue, but due to regulation will remain below the threshold known to cause any damage. The current scientific consensus is that 5G does not show adverse impacts on health like headaches, sleep, cognitive function, or cancer. And 5G has nothing to do with the coronavirus. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't be skeptical of technological advances. I mean, honestly, we did all this research and made this video because we're skeptical ourselves. I do think it's important that we continue to regulate and understand how all of these technologies that are going to be used around us work. But at the end of the day, we also need to listen to science and to listen to scientific consensus in order to guide our knowledge. It's fascinating. It's a really good way to understand how these conspiracy theories are spreading. But if you haven't subscribed, make sure you've done that. But otherwise, guys, thank you for watching. Like it, subscribe, do all the things if you like science videos, and we'll see you next time.